this interview, Sue Gray of Help Me Sleep talks about headbanging in Amsterdam, redundancy, ME, depression, the inspiration of her 102-year-old aunt, and how the threat of spending 6 months meditating while standing on her head on the top of a mountain led to a life-changing decision. To kick it off, I asked her to explain something about what happened in Amsterdam.
Well, I was just on a bus, and I wasn't used to sort of, the bendy buses, with the bit in the
Oh,
middle.
yes.
And so
Mhm.
I was walking across it, and it turned, or it braked hard, and I just went flying down the bus, and sort of pulled my shoulder. I think I must have just upset my system. I think I got a bit of a bang on the head. But then that evening, we were all sitting down to this meal on this big table, and it had this massive, great big bell over it,
Mhm.
metal bell, and I hit my head on this bell, and so I think
Mhm.
that sort of led me into being ill and just being stressed because I couldn't walk. And there's a sort of just near where we live, there's a pavement that slopes, and I couldn't walk along it.
So what was the next part in that story then? You've reached the point where you're struggling to walk down the pavements with
Yeah.
any slope or whatever. What happened next?
Well, I was back at work. I wasn't feeling brilliant, and I think it just ended up with keep on getting like flu-like symptoms, and then they just wouldn't go, and then they said it was post-viral fatigue. Then after about 6 months, they said it was chronic fatigue, and after about a year, it was ME. And I would have some days when I was okay, so I could take the dog to the park,
Mhm.
do some
Mhm.
stuff, but then other days, it was just like your energy would just drain. It was like somebody pulled a plug out on your energy, and you could just feel it, like you were walking along, and you just somebody take the plug out, and then you were stuck. So sometimes I'd be sitting in the park for like 3 hours waiting for my husband to get home and come and get me and the dog. So anyway, so then I sort of felt sorry for myself, and it was awful, and it was horrible, but there's not much you could do. And then after about a year or two, after about a year, I think I decided, bugger this, I've got to get well. I mean, my aunt was 102 when she died, and I was 50. So I thought, right, okay, that's 52 years of sitting here in this room feeling ill. Oh, sod it. You either kill yourself or you've got to get well. Because the funny thing with depression is that you don't actually feel depressed. I didn't feel down. I sort of felt like just like this, sort of, well, it's just the logical step, isn't it? You just kill yourself. It just made sense. But I mean, I was aware enough of what was happening to sort of say, actually, I need to go and see the doctor. And to my husband, you better come with me.
Yeah.
Because I could see what I was doing, and I thought, is this? Oh, this is what that sort of level of depression is. Because I didn't feel miserable. I wasn't sort of like sitting there crying, or how something goes wrong and you feel depressed. It wasn't
Yeah.
that. It wasn't that feeling. So anyway, I decided to get well, and it was this sort of that day I sort of thought, well, Auntie Winnie lived till she was 102, so that's sort of 50 years of this. If I'm not going to kill myself, then I've got to get well. And I made a decision, and it was quite strange. I said to myself, I'm going to get well, even if I have to go and go and meditate on the top of a mountain, standing on my head for 6 months. And I'd
Yeah.
forgotten all about that. Anyway, I went then sort of forgot about that. And then I went and looked at different things I'd rejected. And, coming from sort of affordable housing, that sort of, building and that sort of thing. So I didn't know much about the power of your mind. But I had got an interest in NLP, and I'd actually persuaded my work to put me on an NLP course, practitioner course, because I thought it would be useful. So I'd looked at the lightning process and then sort of rejected it because some people said it didn't work, or it was a swizz or something like that. And it was NLP based, and I just decided to give it a go. And the hardest thing about that was that you had to read the book first, and then you had to be of the opinion that if it can work for other people, then there's no reason it can't work for me. And that was hard because you always see yourself as special. Yes, they might have been worse than me in every other way, but I've got this extra thing. Sort of getting yourself over that when you can get yourself over that, then that's a really big step. It's done in a group. It's a 3-day training course, so it's not a cure.
Okay.
And it was invented by a guy called Dr. Phil Parker, who's PhD doctor, neuroscience, and who was an osteopath as well as sort of NLP. And so he sort of combined it, and yeah, I mean, it is very, very effective. It gets you out of what, you know, if you're stuck, you know, it's really good for almost anything. People with MS have been using it, Parkinson's. But the thing is, it's a bit like driving a car. You know, you've got to use the brakes, you've got to use the gears, otherwise it doesn't work. So people, you know, I know who will say, oh, I did it, it was great, I was fine for 6 months, but then I got ill again. Well, yeah, you've got to use it. You know, you're going to hit the brick wall if you don't put the brakes on.
At what point in the process were you starting to think, what do I do next with my life?
Well, I think once I decided that I could get well, I wanted to open a wool shop while I had ME, and I thought that would be nice and relaxing, which was really strange.
Right.
How could you run a wool shop? You know, you'd have to, you know, it was a bit daft, really. Then I thought I'd sort of set up sort of things on eBay and, you know, I bought in some stuff that didn't really sell, so but that was all right. You know, then I went to do this NLP, you know, the course, the lightning process course, and I was just so fascinated by the power of your mind that I decided to, you know, go along to some of Phil's sort of initial training sessions, and then I thought I'd do his NLP practitioner course, which was a year's course. So it wasn't like a 3-day course. So it was like one weekend a month. So it was hypnotherapy, clinical hypnotherapy, NLP practitioner, and life coach certification. I went down the dole to get my £60 a week because I thought I was entitled to it by this time. And they found me a job, which I thought was the most unreasonable of them. And I thought, yeah, you found me a job. Yeah, it won't be anything. And it was, but it was like either a development director or a development manager within about 3 miles of where I lived, or a project manager. And I got the development manager job, but I got made redundant out of that after a couple of years. So that was quite good.
The next stage then in this, because I'm interested in what the underlying trends.
Well, the next thing I did was that I then started to set up my own business when I knew I was getting the redundancy. So, I mean, that was really good. And then I sort of practiced as a sort of NLP hypnotherapist in London, in central London and in Harrow. And that was sort of going okay, you know, with a few clients. I didn't want to work full time. And then I discovered Sandy Newbigin's book called Mind Calm and Body Calm. And that was just just transformed everything for me. It just made such a lot of sense, the Mind Calm book. And it's just sort of talking about, you know, if you're trying to control everything in your life, you know, what you end up with is huge levels of stress, illness, you know, and if you could just let things be, then you end up with freedom. You know, trying to control things will not give you freedom. And then that comes back to judgments. And I can still see this page of his book. You know, you judge a situation, good or bad. So the train's late. You judge it bad, you get stressed. You're stressed on the train, you get home, you're grumpy, you know, everything else just the whole evening disintegrates, and you go to bed, you don't sleep, you wake up the next day, you know, all the rest. Somebody else judges the train being late as good because actually they missed that meeting they didn't want to go to, or, you know, they've been able to chat to somebody else on the platform for a few minutes. So it's that judgment, it's that thinking, it all goes down to thinking. It's making that judgment, it's good or it's bad. I'm so glad I got ME, because otherwise I wouldn't have found this.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I've been doing it for about 5 years, 4 or 5 years.
Right.
But I mean, it doesn't just give you sort of peace with your eyes closed. You know, it transforms everything.
If you look back where you are now to where you were at the worst moment of the precipice before things started to change, what's the difference? How are the feelings different now? The outlook different?
I'm just a different person. Yeah, everything's different. You know, I mean, I still get triggered by things. You know, I'll get into thinking, or something will cause me to get upset, but much, much less. So I really notice it now if I do sort of go off into thinking about something, or if I get cross about something. I mean, everything's just really completely different. It's just sort of so peaceful.
Where does the difference come from? You said it's completely different now. Where does the difference come from?
It comes from inside, and it comes from just not believing your thoughts, and then not getting taken up with your thoughts, and just learning the ability to, the techniques they just give you, just to keep coming back to the present moment, and realizing that, you know, your thoughts are the cause of nearly all of your suffering, and that you can be ill, but you don't naturally necessarily have to suffer with it. Or it doesn't mean that everything in your life is going to go right, but you don't actually have to suffer with it. The other thing that happens, I think, is you get more and more just in oneness with the universe or whatever, is that things just start getting easier. Really lovely poster.
Okay.
It says, "Good morning, this is God. I will be handling all your problems today. I will not need your help, so have a nice day."
Sue, thank you. That was Sue Gray of Help Me Sleep.